Okay, so good to be back. In today's lesson, we're going to continue from where we left off. In our previous lesson, we looked at the len function. All right, so we saw that the len function takes a list as an argument. Some functions do not really take a list as an argument. They use what we call the dot notation. All right, so let me jump into my Sublime Text and, we need to check that out. All right, so we have these methods. Let me see. We have this append method or function. You will hear me use method and function interchangeably. They are used interchangeably. There is a slight technical difference, which is not really important at this moment in time. All right, so over here we have nums, which is our list of numbers. These are arbitrary numbers that I just added into a list. And then we're going to see how we can use these functions or methods. All right, so the first one is the append method. So let me show you the syntax. All right, so we reference the list, right? Our list is called nums, so that's what we referenced here. And then we use what we call the dot notation, and then we write the name of the method or the name of the function that we want to use. All right, so this function is acting on this list, all right? So is interacting with, is manipulating this particular list. So what do we want to do with append method? So from the word append means adding something or attaching something. So we want to attach 100 to this particular list, right? So let me print nums right now, save and run. You see down here, now I have 100 added to the list. But what you have to note is the 100 is added to the end of the list. Let me duplicate this line and add 200 and see what happens. And you see the 200 is also added to the end of the list. So the append function always appends something to the end of the list. All right, so the next function that we're going to look at is the insert method. So let's say I want to insert something at a specified index. So this is where this insert method comes in. All right, so we saw that the append method, it only appends to the end. But then if I want to insert something at a specified position, I'll have to use the insert method. nums.insert. So this one takes two arguments. The first argument is going to be the place or the index or the position where you want to insert that given element. So let's say I want to insert it on position 1. So which one is position 1? 10 is on position 0 and then 20 is on position 1. So I want to insert it where the 20 is. All right. So what happens is if you insert something or an element on a given index, from that index going to the right, the elements are going to be pushed to the right. Okay, so separate these with a comma, and then what do I want to put there? I want to put a 15 there. Let me print the nums. Save and run. You will see down here now I inserted a 15 between 10 and 20. So the 20 was pushed to the right and everything else to the right. All right, so we had 10. We now have 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, and 50. So as you can see over here, I specified that on position 1. So I could, specify anyway, right? I could say on position 2 and run it. You will see now, the 30 was pushed to the right and everything afterwards was pushed to the right, and then our, element was inserted right there. So this is where the insert method comes in. What the append method cannot do, the insert method can actually do. All right, so that's the beauty. Okay, so you will see how you interact with these methods. All right, so let's move on to the next method, the next function, which is the index. So the indexing is pointing, right, to point to a particular position or a place. So index, it gives me the position, the first occurrence of a given element in a list. All right, so let's see how it works. So it uses the same syntax, nums.index. And so we want to check on what position is 50, or let's say 30. Let me put another 30 in here. All right, so it gives us the first occurrence of an element. First occurrence, keep that in mind. All right, so I want to print this. Let me directly print this over here. I want to run this. 7 run, it tells me it's on index 2, so you see 0, 1, 2. So it always looks for the first occurrence, okay, even though we have another 30 here, but then the first occurrence of that, particular item is on index 2. All right, so I hope that is pretty clear. All right, let's move on to the last one. The count. Count is as old as mankind, right? So let's say nums is the same syntax, nums count. So it gives me how many of an element are in a given list. Okay, how many elements, how many of that particular element are in that given list. All right, so let's count how many 50s we have. So how many 50s do we have? I want to print this out. I always have to print, so that we see, in our console. And so save and run, you see we have 2 50s, how many 30s? Save and run, you see there are 2 30s and how many 10s? Save and run, you see there's only 1. So these are how these work. Okay, so we have looked at these 4. I want to give you extra ones. So we said the len function always takes the list as an argument. So nums, right? We looked at this in our previous lesson. So I could use this print len nums and save and run. We see what numbers do we have? 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Of course, is correct. Okay, so we have 2 more that work in a similar way. These are not dot notation functions, right? So we have max. So if I save and run this, it gives us back the maximum in a given list. So the maximum is 50, right? The highest number. And then obviously we have the min, the minimum. Save and run, you see the minimum is 10. All right, so these are a couple of other methods that you can use to interact with the list. All right, so going back, we also have the remove and the reverse method, as you guys can see. So you have to note and experiment and play around with them and see how they work, what they do and what they cannot do. All right, so let's answer this question and wrap up our tutorial for today. Drag and drop from the options below to add Z or Z to the end of the list and print the list's length. Okay, so if we want to add something to the end, we use the append method. And then if you want to check the length of anything, we use the len function followed by the list that we want to check. Okay, so check it out. That's the correct answer. All right, so I want to thank you for your time. In our next lesson, we're going to look at string functions. For today, I'm done. Cheers.